So I finally think I've sorted Boris's suspension. After a few videos of work and getting things wrong here and there, I think that this is the setup that works absolutely best. I've had it tested for a little while and I feel like I haven't mentioned the final setup. A few things I did wrong in the past we'll be talking about today. So I hope you enjoy this video and let's get into it. So over the last few months, as you probably may have seen in the previous videos, I've been trying to sort Boris's suspension with the added weight in the back with the sort of wooden interior for the camper van and also the roof rack, awning and roof tent on top. It is slightly over what it comes prepared for when you get it from the factory. Over the years, the 4 years and 4.5 years that I've had Boris, I've been running a multitude of different setups. It came with heavy duty, but obviously at that point I had no roof rack and it was just a blank interior at the back. That seemed way too much, so I went to just a standard Britpart 110 spring on the back, and that seemed to work fine. Then skip forward, I went for heavy duty springs up front with new terra firma shocks up the front because I was getting the winch and it was also feeling just a bit wallowy. So heavy duty up the front and terra firma shocks up the front as well. Going forward quite a bit of time, that worked fine. And I feel like the roof tent, when I put it on, it really didn't seem to have the same impact that I had heard from other people. You know, like it didn't feel like it went immediately bad handling and really wallowy around and swaying around. I didn't notice it straight away. Ian from IRB, when I was fitting the winch, he did just have a standard sway bar, which is sitting right there, which he gave to me. I bought a few extra bits to make it fit, but that is the standard 110 rear anti-roll bar. Put that on, that seemed to help out quite a lot and felt really nice. I don't know what happened, but it was strange. It went to Strata and then after that, when we came back, it felt like maybe it just wore it out, and then we're going around Wales doing all the sort of windy roads at 50 mile an hour, and it was really winding around. I'm sure I'm repeating myself slightly here, but I just wanted to tell the whole picture for anyone that didn't see the previous videos. And just explain the whole process and where we are now. So that's sort of how we got to that point. And then I really felt at that point I was sort of running heavy duty on the front, and then the rear just wasn't up for it, and it really felt like it was sort of kicking over. And the front wheel, because it was heavy duty, sort of almost felt like it was coming up around some corners. It might have been just a mental state. It wasn't actually quite that bad, but I definitely felt like it wasn't sort of holding its sort of ground how I wanted to. So I spoke to Brookwell's, Justin at Brookwell's, and we chatted about the sort of different setups. I think maybe I sort of rushed into the process and probably should have done a bit more research before it, but I'm glad I did it so that I can tell you about it now, and you can sort of work it out for yourself when it comes to it. But the first thing we went for was standard Nitro Sport shocks at the back. They're the old man Emu ones, and they made a huge difference. I was running my standard Britpart springs at the back, put those in, and even though you could still feel it was going over a lot more, it didn't feel like it was, you know, rocking side to side as much. You know, it was controlling it a bit more, but it definitely wasn't quite there. So I was like, right, what can we do next? I've got an anti-roll bar, I've got the new shocks. The last thing to check was the springs. So from there, I went to some 300 kilo springs, which seemed to do the trick straight away. I thought they were absolutely brilliant. Heavier duty spring, and then chucked them on the back at BHE Benz, and they were from Brookwell's as well, and that seemed to work nicely. You know, I went out on the roads, and you know, when you first get something, it is a bit of placebo, and also it hasn't had time to wear in, so it's bad to sort of give an opinion on something straight away like that. But it's not, you know, it's easy to get sort of carried away a little bit, so it's good to just sort of wait a little bit, get your opinion sort of settled in, and then work it out. And I felt even then, ride comfort was good. It was slightly firmer than the standard ones, as you'd imagine, because they're 300 kilo heavy duty, but it was still wallowing around quite a bit on those 300 kilo springs with the setup that I have in the back. And it got to the point where it was just the same. I felt like, why have I put this amount of money in, you know, OME springs, OME shocks, and then we're still having the same thing, even though it was slightly better. It wasn't where I wanted it to be. So sort of not ignored, but I sort of just went straight for what's next. I'll speak to Justin, we'll go to Brookwell's, and what's next on the OME list, and we went for the 500 kilo springs, because I sort of did think maybe I should have done that in the first place. I could have gone past that and gone for the 500 kilo springs, which would have been better. It turns out that with advice that I've been given now and sort of at that time, it's not all about the springs, it's also about the sway bar. And even though I had one, I was like, I've got one, so why do I need a different one? There are lots of different options for them. And went for the 500 kilo spring, standard sway bar, sport nitro shocks from OME, and that, if you saw the video, you saw, put them in, went around all the corners around here, about 60 miles an hour. Felt like rock solid, round the bends, gave my opinion straight away, super happy about it. It was just much more rock solid and was feeling good. So a few weeks later, maybe a month or so later, I had a time to really assess those rear springs, and they were rock solid. They were like wooden, just having chunks of wood in the back instead of springs, which if you're carrying weight, if you've got a fully loaded vehicle, maybe 2 roof tents or a camper plus water plus an extended fuel, 2 rear wheels, you are reaching the maximum GVM there. But if you are carrying a constant load of that much, you would want to go for that sort of one. But they were just a bit too much for me. I found that the back was sitting up sort of like a dragster, which I don't like the look of, which is good if you've got a utility vehicle, if you're working with it, but I just found it was sitting too high. And at this point I was sort of like annoyed, because I'd put the video out and put my opinion out there, and people coming up to me at shows asking about it, and you sort of realise that these videos you're making, people are relying on it, which is why I wanted to make this one, because I wanted to just explain the whole process to stop you from doing what I did. Exactly. So from there I was a bit dumbfounded, felt like a bit embarrassed to like go back to a different setup, but I thought it'd be best to just sort of do it and then tell people from now on the sort of setup I'd go for. And I feel now the next step is sweet, is perfect for me, and I have been testing it quite a bit. I've done a lot of miles on it, done some off-roading, and I feel like it's pretty much perfect, but there is one more step I think I would go for if I was going to go for the absolute perfect setup. Then I went back to the 300 kilo springs. They gave a nice ride, they're sort of heavy duty enough, and you're not going over bumps, and they're absolutely, I was going over speed bumps and everything was bouncing off the back. It was ridiculous, So 300 kilo springs, those shocks, and I've gone to a 28mm heavy duty Terra Firma anti-roll bar. The difference in thickness between the two, you can see why they sell it and why it does the trick. Bought new bushings, new mounts, new bolts from Brookwell's, and then mounted that up as well. Really easy job. Removed the old one, grease up the bushings with some molly grease, which is a good tip from Pete and Michelle, where I got the heavy duty roll bar from, and mounted that up, and then went straight to the Lake District. I wanted to get this all done before that trip, because I knew that we'd be doing motorway miles and then into sort of winding roads and a bit of off-roading as well, and I wanted to make sure that the setup was sort of perfect for that trip. And I have to say it was. That's a lot of miles we've done, a lot of different terrain, a lot of different setups. At the moment I think it's perfect, and I would recommend it to anyone. The only thing is, this is the only thing, it's more of a road suited setup, only because the roll bar is extremely heavy duty and extremely thick. I have got a shot here of the roll bar after a bit of off-roading. I think it was my fault, I put too many washers in and didn't actually engage the nylock on the bolt for the sway bar, and it actually came disconnected in the Lake District. I was driving home and it felt a lot more wallowy, and then I heard a big bang. I was worried about it, but what it was the nut falling off, the bolt falling off on the motorway, and the bolt and nut just disappeared, and it meant it was disconnected. So what I did was completely disconnect it, tie it up out the way, and I think that's down to my mistake with the lock on the bolt, but also it is very heavy duty, which means you just don't get the same articulation from no anti-roll bar or the one I was running before. It is thick and it stops the body from rolling, and I wouldn't say it limits it enough to worry about it, but it doesn't allow the articulation like you would without it. So the option from there, and I'm not affiliated to the company and I don't have it yet, but I would consider it, and Pete and Michelle, who I bought my anti-roll bar from, have this, and I would consider it. There's X Engineering make a really heavy duty anti-roll bar with a lockable hub that you get on an axle, which means you can lock it up, and the roll bar is completely solid, and it means that the body can't roll, and then you unlock it and you've got the same amount of articulation that you would want without an anti-roll bar. So it's pretty much, I think it's like up towards £400, so you know, it's not the cheapest, but to be honest, nor is the Terra Firma one. I sort of wish that maybe I went for that one first, but you know, it's a learning process and I can teach you as well. But that's where we are now. I'm with the Terra Firma heavy duty anti-roll bar, and could think that that's perfect for the road, good for off-roading unless you're going to do some more extreme stuff. And the one I mentioned, the lockable X Engineering one, would be, I think, dream setup. Old Man Emu springs and shocks, and that works perfectly with a 110 fully loaded up with the camper setup and the roof tent as well. So that's the whole sort of process till now, and I just felt like I had sort of done most of the steps and then documented them sort of going wrong, and then finally sorted it now, or what I think is sorted. And I just wanted to come on here and I just wanted to sort of clear that up, so that if you are looking for the same thing, because if you search Old Man Emu sort of install, review, anything online, I don't feel there's that much, but I am very happy with that setup. And in the future, what I'll do is probably go for some similar rated front springs and nitro sport shocks for the front as well, so they all match, because I've heard from other people and myself that Old Man Emu, which is this video is not sponsored by, do really transform the ride, and they are known as one of the best in the sort of Land Rover market, and I think the same, which is pretty good. But yeah, I hope this has helped you. It hasn't been too waffly. I hope I can get some nice shots in here of the previous installs and maybe some beauty shots from other trips as well. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.